السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد. Yesterday in our essential series,
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
the manners, Islamic manners, we discussed etiquettes regarding visiting people's homes, accepting invitations or declining someone's invitation, and we discussed certain matters pertinent to that topic. So if you are invited to someone's house or to someone's party or to a program and you do not have any intention of actually going, then you should not give a false promise or even just say, Inshallah, I will try to come, if you know that you will not be able to come, because that will cause difficulty to the person and they may be saving you a seat, and because they think that you are coming, they will not be inviting others. So if you know that you're not able to come, then just very openly tell the person that you will not be able to come. This is what we discussed yesterday, along with some other details. And this is what we'll be beginning from today, inshallah, that if a person declines your invitation, then you likewise should not be offended. So if you are asking someone to come to a party, and if they do not come to that party, or if they say that they are busy, then you should not be offended by that. And the classic example that is given is of Abdurrahman ibn Auf radiallahu anhu, the famous companion of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, one of the Ashara Mubashara. He was a very close companion to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yet one day the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam saw something on him, and you could say athar al-sufra is kind of, in modern day lingo, maybe you could say that it's kind of like makeup. So he saw some yellow dye on him that kind of looked like makeup. So he asked him that, what is this? And so Abdullah ibn Zubayr radiallahu anhu mentioned that he got married. So Abdullah ibn Zubayr radiallahu anhu, a companion of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in the same city as the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in Medina, he got married, and he did not think that it was so important to even invite the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to his wedding. Now imagine how simple nikah is. From this hadith, we learn how simple nikah is. Nowadays, we make it such a big deal. We make it very difficult that we have to invite the entire city. We have to invite everyone that we know, and this is very burdensome. Some people go into thousands and thousands of dollars of debt because they are not able to, or they have to take out money in order to throw such a lavish wedding, walima, and pre nikah. There's so many parties as well. But the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, and what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself taught us, when we look at his marriages, we see that they were very, very simple. And as we can see from this hadith, Abdurrahman ibn Auf radiallahu anhu did not even feel that it was necessary to invite the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to his own wedding. Now the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he did not get upset. He did not say that, do you know who I am? You didn't want me to perform your nikah? You didn't think that you should invite me to your nikah? Of course not. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was not like that. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam rather taught him an important principle, an important point that we can all benefit from. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Awlim walau bishat." So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was happy, and he taught him to have a walima, even if it is with one goat. Even if you're just slaughtering one goat and feeding it to the people, at least have a walima and feed the people. So the Prophet ﷺ did not get upset that he wasn't invited. He didn't make it a necessity that you have to invite me to your wedding. I have to perform your nikah. Nothing like that. Rather, the Prophet ﷺ was happy for him, and he taught him to have a walima. So from this, we learn a very important point, that it is not something that we should feel bad about if someone does not invite us to a particular party or program, number one. And number two, if we invite them to a party or an event and they decline, that is certainly something that we should not be upset about. Now, when you visit a person's home, the next thing that Sheikh Abdul Fattah Abu Ghudda rahmatullahi alayhi mentions as part of the book that we are covering, Islamic Manners, is to control your eyes. So he says, when asking permission to enter a home, avoid glancing unnecessarily at its interior or beyond the guest's quarters, right? You are not an inspector in the person's home. You're not going there as someone who is trying to look for certain details or investigating a crime scene or anything like that. You are going there simply to visit the person or because the person invited you to a party. So you should not unnecessarily look around, try to see what is behind in the closets or what is in the different rooms in the person's house, or how well kept the bathroom is or anything like that, or how the kitchen is or how big the house is. You shouldn't be worrying about these things. This can cause difficulty to the host, number one, because you are looking at something that you are not supposed to be looking at. You may see someone in a state that you are not supposed to see them. For example, you may see the host's family members, the women folk of the house, they may not be wearing hijab, and you are looking around. And there are many, many ahadith of the Prophet ﷺ regarding the importance of not looking where you're not supposed to be looking. For example, the Prophet ﷺ, Sa'ad ibn Ubadah radiallahu anhu mentions that a man stood facing the door of the Prophet ﷺ while asking permission to enter. So he was staring at the door of the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ told him, he said, turn this way. So he turned him to the side, turning him away and ordering him to move further from the door, saying, the Prophet ﷺ said, asking permission is prescribed to prevent intrusion. Right? So the Prophet ﷺ taught him a very important point, that when you are visiting someone's house and you are ringing the doorbell or knocking on the door, don't stand directly facing the door. Rather, turn towards the side. Why? Because it may be one of the women folk open the door, or non-mahram. If you're a woman entering, visiting the home, then a man may open the door. And it's not good to stand directly facing one another. Rather, you should turn to the side. Likewise, even if it is your friend who opens the door, but you are facing the door, so it is your friend, but you may be looking at something beyond your friend into the household where there may be something that you're not supposed to see. So the Prophet ﷺ taught this man, this companion, a very important point, a very important etiquette of turning to the side when you are visiting someone's home, when you are knocking at the door. Likewise, Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi mentions in Al-Adab al-Mufrad that Thawban radiallahu anhu recounted that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, a person should not look inside a house before getting permission. If you do look inside before asking permission, you have already entered, meaning you have trespassed. So you have trespassed into someone's home. The Prophet ﷺ also said, if the sight leaps, permission should be denied, right? So if someone is looking into your home without you giving permission to them, and subhanAllah, we may have seen this, or we may have experienced this, or perhaps when you were younger, we may have done the same thing, that when you're knocking at on someone's door and they have a glass door and you try looking inside or peeking inside, the Prophet ﷺ is saying that if the sight leaps, then access should be denied, meaning you should not grant the person permission from entering the home. One time, and this is a very stern warning of the Prophet ﷺ. One time, and this is narrated in Bukhari and Muslim, Sahal ibn Sa'ad radiallahu anhu mentions that a man peeked into the hole, through a hole in the room of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So as you can imagine, back then there were no, cement walls or brick walls or wooden walls that, you cannot really look through someone's wall nowadays. But back in the days, you could see through a little hole in the wall of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's room. Likewise, nowadays you can give the simile to, or the similarity of a glass window, right? So you could see inside someone's house. So someone peeked into the home of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam while the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was scratching his head with a small pitchfork, like you could say a comb. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was scratching his head. When the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam saw the intruder, so the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam noticed that this person was looking into the home, he said, "Had I known you were looking, I would have poked your eye." Subhanallah. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is a prophet of mercy, right? Rahmatul lil alameen. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was a mercy to all mankind. But when there was something very important to be told, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not shy away from that. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saying that if had known you were looking, I would have poked your eye. Meaning this would have been the proper recompense for that. Asking permission was prescribed to prevent intrusion, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said. And this is quite obvious, right? This is very simple for us to understand. When you're looking into someone's home, you may see the people of their household, maybe they're not wearing something that they would like others to be seeing them in, or they may not be wearing their hijab, so on and so forth. So this is something that we should be keeping in mind. Shaykh Abdul Fattah Bughudda rahmatullah alayhi mentions that, a subsection that he brings next is burdening hosts with requests. As I mentioned yesterday, the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, as they were described, كانوا أقل تكلفا. They had the least amount of takalluf. They were very open with one another, right? And I gave some light-hearted jokes yesterday and some examples of how having too much takalluf can actually cause problems within a marriage or within the household. And I gave the example of my friend who is Gujarati, who got married into a Hyderabadi family. And he was saying that at the beginning of his marriage, it was a little bit difficult because he didn't realize that his in-laws, who were Hyderabadi, that they had a lot of takalluf. Whereas in the Gujarati culture, you don't have takalluf. If you want something, you just say it openly. So he would ask his in-laws, "Do you want food?" And they would say no, but they were expecting him to keep on asking them. But then when they would say no, then he would just eat the food. And only later did he realize that they actually wanted the food. So these type of formalities can actually cause problems. And the Sahaba radiallahu anhum were not like that. They were very straightforward. If they wanted something, they would say, "Yes, I want it," or they would reject. Imagine the Sahaba radiallahu anhum even proposed to their friends to marry their own daughters. And you can imagine how nowadays someone would probably take that offensively, that how can you ask me so openly to marry my daughter, or how can you ask me so openly to marry my sister or my relative? But the Sahaba radiallahu anhu did not have those type of unnecessary formalities. However, at the same time, it is important to understand that we should not burden your host with requests. So Shaykh Abdul Fattah Bughudda mentions, whether visiting friends or relatives, one must avoid unnecessary requests that may cause inconvenience to the hosts. For example, avoid using their phone, going to the toilet, or performing your ablution, right? Perhaps someone invites you to their home. They don't really, they expect you to come to the home, but they're not expecting you to have to use the restroom. So the restroom may be dirty or it may not be cleaned. And so you may be burdening them by asking them to use the restroom. Of course, if you have to use the restroom, then, by all means, you should tell them. But if you are in a position where you can hold the restroom, you don't have to go at that time, then it may be better to do so, because you may be burdening them unnecessarily. Good manners dictate that you should be considerate, for not every house may have these facilities prepared for the convenience of its guests. Its condition or location could be embarrassing for the host, right? Perhaps in order to go to the restroom, you have to pass through one of the corridors of the homes in which there may be some of the women folk of the household, for example, and that may cause some difficulty to the guest. Prepare yourself in the convenience of your home before paying visits, right? Use the restroom, make wudu, and then go to the person's home. Shaykh Abdul Fattah Bughud rahmatullahi next mentions the importance of timing your visit, right? And this is an important point that we'll end on, inshallah, that choose an appropriate time for your visit. Do not visit at inconvenient times, such as mealtime or when people are sleeping, resting, or relaxing. Now, this is an important point, not just for visiting people when you're visiting someone at their home, but also in any form of communication with a person. So nowadays, most people, we have phones, we text, we email. We should be mindful of the time that we are calling someone or the time that we are texting or even leaving an email. You may think that I can just leave an email, it's not a big problem, or I'll just text this person. They don't have to read it right now. They could read it whenever they wake up. But you don't know if the person turned off their notifications or they put their phone on silent or on mute when they're going to sleep. So perhaps by you texting them very late at night or you emailing them, it may wake them up and it may disturb their sleep. So these are things that we should be mindful of, not to disturb someone when they are at home with their family, if you know that they are busy, um, or if you know that they are eating, for example, or they are in a meeting, they may be working at that time. These are things that we should be mindful of. The length of the visit should correspond with how well you know the hosts, as well as their circumstances and conditions. The Prophet ﷺ one time was visited by the companions radiallahu anhum, and the Prophet ﷺ, the Sahaba stayed at his home for a very long time, and the Prophet ﷺ was very shy. He had a lot of haya. He didn't want to tell them that, I'm tired now. Can you please leave my home? Allah Ta'ala, on behalf of the Prophet ﷺ, revealed in Surah Al-Ahzab an entire ayah. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, that all you who believe, when the Prophet invites you to his house, do not stay there musta'nisina li hadith. Do not stay there just conversing and taking time and just talking and just passing time. You should realize, on the other hand, that there is a time, perhaps now the host is tired, or perhaps now the host is trying to go to sleep, so let me leave. And that time may vary depending on how close you are with the host. Maybe the host is your best friend and he wants you to stay there for hours, and there's no problem. Maybe the host, maybe for some people you should only stay there for half an hour or for 1 hour, and of course that will depend on your best judgment. But you do not want to stay there for a long period of time in which you are burdening the host. The visit ought to be conducted in a pleasant manner and at convenient times. There are numerous sayings and traditions, meaning ahadith of the Prophet ﷺ and ayat from the Quran, as I mentioned, in this regard. So I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the proper understanding. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us Muslims who have the best manners, acting upon the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.